Now, it's an undeniable fact that in the last decade or so, I mean, there's been tremendous developments in the art world. On the one hand, you have emerging economies such as Russia, China, India, Brazil, and even South Africa really coming to the fore and, becoming a hot place for the art trade, for artists to be. So they've really, are joining forces not just with Europe and the United States, but being a real a market art world on their own. The other development, of course, is the rise of social media. The whole internet has dramatically changed how we communicate with each other, how we interact with each other, and how people do business, quite frankly. And it's clear that the art world is not left unaffected by this, right? Mm-hmm. Now, in this course, in our sessions on precisely emerging art markets and the digital age, we'd like to zoom in on some of these topics. And we'd like to discuss further, in detail, in depth, what some of these developments are, how they are affecting the art trade in itself, but also processes of valorization, how artists deal with this, how expertise is being constructed. And maybe you can say a little bit more about some of these things.
Yeah, exactly. So, for starters, we have the Western art model. Undoubtedly, it has been imported and adopted by emerging markets across the world. So the question, though, is not about whether the structure of Western art models have been adopted, because they are, whether it's the art fairs, art galleries, auction houses, but the practices within these, as the emerging markets are localizing it to their context, are these shifting dramatically? Is there a game changer here? That's, I think, very fascinating. There's also another dimension, a really very important debate to be had, is that what is the role today of the gatekeepers, the traditional gatekeepers, of art critics and curators, particularly in an age where the average Joe basically has a say through their online reviews, online opinions. I mean, look at other industries. We look at the food industry, the food critic has been sidelined, movie critics, IMDb has come in, So can we actually say that the art world is safe from these changes? Are they really exempt from them? That's something worth looking at. And I would say another dimension which is fascinating is, what is good art today? What is it? I mean, who's determining good art, particularly as emerging markets rise and you have this affluent consumer coming in? So you have these new, say for example from China, you have these new Chinese buyers and also a new kind of Chinese cultural consumer. And so are they also shifting what constitutes as good taste, which is, let's admit it, been dictated by the Western, biased frameworks for a long time. So that's something I really believe needs addressing today, urgently. And I would say another dimension would be about the museum culture. It's a fact that majority of people in the world have not, in the emerging markets particularly, have not stepped foot in a museum. So I find that very exciting that we have these new immersive platforms like the Google Art Project, which allows them the sort of taste of this new art experience through these museum simulations. So let's just look at that for a moment and say, okay, is this shifting how art experience is taking place in today's digital age? And how is that contributing to cultural tourism today? These are some very exciting topics, and I know you have some other aspects you would like to share.
I'll just look at the whole phenomenon of e-commerce. Mm-hmm. I mean, up until very recently, people would not, in their right mind, buy an original work of art online. It was just not done. It was, maybe on eBay you would go and buy a stapler or something that was reproducible, an old print perhaps at most. But fascinating, it's very, very interesting to watch that in the last couple of years, people have gained confidence and trust to go online and buy original artworks for quite a bit of money. In fact, some of the bigger platforms, such as Amazon, have now launched a site whereby people can go and buy art, buy original art. Prices ranging from very cheap still, $10, $15, $20 perhaps, but up to $500,000 easily for an original work of art. This is a very new development. And we do have to wonder, where is this coming from? Is this the wave of the future? Or is this going to replace, in fact, traditional auction houses or traditional ways in which art is transacted, is sold, is exhibited? Are younger generations even more comfortable than older people to go online and buy things like art? Is this a real game changer? Will this change the way we deal in art? This has far-reaching implications, of course. It means, at a very practical level, you can purchase a work of art online from anywhere in the world. You can, be in China, you can be in Latin America, you can be in Japan and buy a work of art that's been offered for sale in London. It's as simple as that. So this is another strand, I think, another phenomenon we really need to look at. But this whole, the internet has brought so much for us, a lot of potential. Look at, for instance, art information. It used to be that, trying to get some real information on works of art, just think about prices. What did they go for at previous auctions, or what's the price at the gallery? That was sort of left undisclosed, or was only privy to a select number of people who were told, who knew what the real value, monetary value of these works are. These days, you and I, everybody, can go online and at the tip of a finger can find out what the previous price history was. There are sites that tell you, when things sold, for what price, and so forth. This is again, has a potential to really change the way the art world functions. Far less elitist, far less privileged in terms of who holds that information, and accessible to all. Now, there's a downside to that. I mean, we know that everybody who has the inclination can write something on Wikipedia, on an artist, on the state of the art market, anything having to do with the art world. The thing is that information, yeah, it's really available, but is it as good as what's been published in traditional textbooks or that's been disseminated by experts? So, we do have to wonder to what extent this greater accessibility is really benefiting our real knowledge about the arts. Do we actually get better information because it's more readily available?
Yeah, I think this is really going to benefit art professionals these days. In fact, I would argue it's impossible to really be a good art professional without looking at these issues, because you no longer are an art consultant for your own little city or your own little country. It is much more porous, and there's far more interlinking networks, and so we have to be able to move with the flow, not just across across borders, but also across institutions, across practices, and follow that.
Yeah, art professionals do not only need to gain insight into these processes and how the art world really functions, they need to understand where it's going, what the impact is of these possibly game-changing developments, of these, the internet and globalization, how that may be changing fundamentally how art is traded, viewed, enjoyed, collected, and so forth. Things are happening very fast. But if you have an understanding on where things are coming from and what actually impacts these developments, I think that gives you the tools to at least have a slightly better sense of where things are going, here in Europe, or in China, or anywhere else in the world.